Before all this cold weather ends, I really wanted to talk about some of my favorite winter reads. I have like a 5 that I think I want to talk about. Some of them I have not read yet, but I am very excited to read and looking forward to reading them. And then a lot of them are just ones I really enjoy and think that you may be able to enjoy them in the cold weather as well. My first book is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I have the book profile pulled up. So first I will read you like the back of the book kind of text that's always there that tells you about the story, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. So this says, things have been wrong with Mr. and Mrs. Wright for a long time. When Adam and Amelia went a weekend away to Scotland, it might be just what their marriage needs. Self-confessed workaholic and screenwriter Adam Wright has lived with face blindness his whole life. He can't recognize friends or family, or even his own wife. Every anniversary, the couple exchange traditional gifts: paper, cotton, pottery, tin, and each year Adam's wife writes him a letter that she never lets him read. Until now. They both know this weekend will make or break their marriage, but they didn't randomly win this trip. One of them is lying, and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. It sounds amazing. The cover is gorgeous. This book is just, it's been on my list for a little while, and then I just never end up picking it up or buying the physical copy at the store. It is on my Kindle, ready to go. But this is a book that is in my favorite genres of like horror, thriller, suspense, but it does take place in wintertime, and that's kind of why I put it in this category. Usually books that you read in winter are either Christmas books or they take place during winter. Most people don't consider horror and thriller books to be reads for around that time because they're not super happy, uppity like all the Christmas romances. But there are so many horror and thriller novels that are perfect to read during the winter, and this book looks like it may be one of those books. The cover has like the trees covered in snow. You can see the little like cabin in the corner of the book. It's just gorgeous, and I've heard so many good things about this book. It has a 3.91 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and in 2021 it was the nominee for Reader's Favorite Mystery and Thriller. That's all I really need to know before I know I want to jump into that book. But it also sounds very interesting. I kind of like that there's something psychological in there with the face blindness. I'm very interested in that kind of stuff, so that already intrigues me. But also the like husband-wife dynamic in thriller and horror books is always so very different than you see in a lot of other books, so that is also something I'm very interested in. It just the description alone sounds like a book that I want to spend some of my time on. So that is really why Rock, Paper, Scissors by Ali Feeney is in this list. Next, I will move on to another horror thriller book, and then we'll get into books that are not in my wheelhouse genres. The next book on my list is probably no surprise to anybody. It is The Shining by Stephen King. I've seen the movie. I know what the story is, but I have yet to read the full book myself. I have it. I'm ready to read it. I'm just trying to find the right time. But I will read the synopsis and we'll talk about it a little bit and talk about why I put it on this list. So the synopsis reads, Jack Torrance's new job at the Overlook Hotel is the perfect chance for a fresh start. As the off-season caretaker at the atmospheric old hotel, he'll have plenty of time to spend reconnecting with his family and working on his writing. But as the harsh winter weather sets in, the idyllic location feels ever more remote and more sinister. And the only one to notice the strange and terrible forces gathering around the Overlook is Danny Torrance, a uniquely gifted 5-year-old. I swear, the synopsis for a Stephen King book has like a 98% chance of giving me chills. I love Stephen King. I love his writing. I very rarely read a Stephen King book that I didn't at least like. His writing is, I don't even know. Like, it has to be just a natural talent because his books are amazing. And he has so many of them in such a wide range of different things. But most people have seen the movie The Shining. It is an absolutely amazing movie. There is so much in this story that it's just hard to really describe or talk about. The point of, like, knowing that this is all happening and, like, partially from the point of view of a 5-year-old is diabolical. Anything that, like, pertains to children and the harm or upset of children can tend to be a difficult read. But so many horror and thriller books use children as the driving force to get that kind of reaction and despair from the reader. This book does it so very well. It has a 4.28 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It is absolutely one of Stephen King's most well-known international bestsellers. It was published in 1977. I forget what year the movie came out. But from then till now, it's still one of Stephen King's most talked about books. It is a little bit on the thicker side, so it can be a little bit intimidating. But Stephen King's writing, like, flies. You will read hundreds of pages before you realize it. And that is part of the reason that I put this book on the list. Also, it all takes place during winter. Harsh winter weather is what traps them there and has all of this really happening to them. So it's perfect to read in winter if you're looking for a, like, spooky, scary kind of read. And since it has a movie adaptation, you can read the book and then watch the movie. There is so much that you could do on a snow day, and that is probably how I would want to spend my snow day. But now that we have done my 2 horror thriller picks, I'm going to go into some more light topics, and we will talk about a romance next that I really love. My next pick is a romance. I have not read a whole lot of Christmas romances or wintry romances, but this is one that I know I can recommend because I absolutely loved it. This is Christmas Criminal by Allie Williams. I am part of her ARC team. I have read multiple ARCs of hers. This was one of them, and this absolutely blew my expectations for a, like, Christmas wintry romance. So, first, the synopsis. When the town sheriff catches me egging my dad's house, he gives me an ultimatum. Stay in this town. I hate to participate in community service or risk potential jail time with a criminal mischief charge. Only once I'm there do I learn the person facilitating my community service will be Nick Monroe, the town's sweetheart who hides his rock-hard body and surprisingly dirty mouth behind Clark Kent glasses and t-shirts proclaiming he hearts math. He plans an array of Christmas activities to spend down my hours. And while we build huts for the winter market and prepare the Christmas float for the high school kids, we become something like friends, who kiss a little bit sometimes. Before I know it, he becomes the sparkle of my season. But I have my reasons for staying away from this town. High school trauma and a dad who never cared, yet pops up every time I visit. And Nick has his own baggage to work through after his ex left him with a bluff, claiming he was too emotionless to fight for her. Despite it all, as the holiday draws nearer, one thing becomes Nick Monroe is All I Want for Christmas. This book, I am not the biggest romance person. I've been trying to get into it more, but it tends to be a little bit difficult for me. This book, I had no issue getting into. The dynamic between Nick and Noelle was amazing. The little sprinkle of mental health awareness in there, amazingly done. It was very Christmassy. It was very rom-com-y. And it's a nice short read. So it's something that you can cuddle up by the heater or the fireplace and read it in a little snowy weekend. If you really enjoy Christmas romances, you will probably love this. If you like rom-coms, you'll probably love this. It's cute. It's you get to watch them kind of fall for each other, and there's a lot of emotional healing and childhood trauma and all of that kind of wrapped into it. And it's hard, in my opinion, to take those more difficult and heartbreaking issues and put them into a romance and have it work. Allie Williams is absolutely amazing at doing that. I have read multiple of her books. Pretty much all of them tie in some kind of mental health issue or problem into the romance, and she does such an amazing job at making it work. So, if you're looking for a Christmas romance, grab your hot chocolate, grab your fuzzy blanket, settle in with Christmas Criminal by Allie Williams. I promise that you will not regret it. Speaking of mental health, this next read is all about mental health. Now, this one is just a fiction, but it is kind of difficult, and the subject of the story is very serious and very heartbreaking. But this was probably one of the best psychology, mental health kind of based books that I've ever read. I'll read you the synopsis, and then I'll tell you about why I put it in this list. 15-year-old Jeff wakes up on New Year's Day to find himself in the hospital. Make that the psychiatric ward, with the nut jobs. Clearly, this is all a huge mistake. Forget about the bandages on his wrists and the notes on his chart. Forget about his problems with his best friend Allie and her boyfriend Burke. Jeff's perfectly fine, perfectly normal, not like the other kids in the hospital with him. No, they've got problems. But a funny thing happens as his 45-day sentence drags on. The crazies start to seem less crazy. Now, this book is Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford. Wow. This book is a teen book, so the desired audience of this book is teens, but it didn't seem like a book that could not or should not be read by adults. I did not read it as a teen. I read it in 2024 at 24 years old. I'm an adult, and it still kind of struck me in that spot that I still have for like my teenage self and my younger self. It is a difficult subject to talk about, and it's definitely difficult to read about. But this book is all about accepting yourself and all those around you being a shoulder to lean on, someone you can rely on, and someone you can relate to. I put it in this list, one, because I absolutely adore it. It's an absolutely amazing book. It is beautifully written. But I also put it in here because it does take place in winter. It takes place, like, around New Year's time. So after Christmas, still snowy, still cold, and there are a lot of like winter activities that happen in this book. And it's kind of this beautiful story of this boy that ends up in this terrible situation. He is in denial about what has happened and why he is here. He's very judgmental of the others that are in that same situation, but he slowly comes to accept himself, his situation, and those around him. He makes friends. He he gets to know others. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. It's just beautiful. If you're into that kind of thing, this book could definitely be for you. It's not a very long book. It's less than 300 pages. I finished it in less than 24 hours. So, if you have a snow day, maybe grab a hot drink and a warm blanket and spend your day reading this book. I don't think you'll regret it, and I think that it can really resonate with you if you look back on your younger self and the hardships that you may have gone through at that age. But our last one is probably the most heartbreaking book that I have read on this list. It had me sobbing. And that's one of the reasons it's on this list. I will pull it up so that I can tell you all about it, and then we'll finish our video off with it. This next book is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. For most of the book, I was kind of indifferent about it, and I did not like the main character. I thought he was a little bit annoying, and it was very sudden and unexpected to get to the end and be red in the face, sobbing, hyperventilating. So, I will read you the synopsis, and we'll talk a little bit about it and why it has made this list. A grumpy yet lovable man finds his solitary world turned on its head when a boisterous young family moves in next door. Meet Ove. He's a curmudgeon, the kind of man who points at people he dislikes as if they were burglars caught outside his bedroom window. He has staunch principles, strict routines, and a short fuse. People call him the bitter neighbor from hell. But must Ove be bitter just because he doesn't walk around with a smile plastered to his face all the time? Behind the cranky exterior, there is a story and a sadness. So when one November morning, a chatty young couple with two chatty young daughters move in next door and accidentally flatten Ove's mailbox, it is the lead-in to a comical and heartwarming tale of unkept cats, unexpected friendship, and the ancient art of backing up a U-Haul, all of which will change one cranky old man and a local residents association to their very foundations. This book was so beautiful. It is my first Frederick Bachman read. I want to read his other books after reading this. This book was written so well. You could tell it was trying to be a little bit funny, but it was also very, sad underneath. It felt a little bit like somebody who tries to cover up their sadness or their personal turmoil with humor. But, oh my god, it broke my heart. I cannot think about this book, deeply without crying still. They did make it into a movie. It is called A Man Called Otto, and I want to see it so badly. But I know that because I have read the book and I know what is coming, I know what the story is, I'm probably going to be crying from the very beginning. It was such a beautiful, beautiful book to read. I definitely think that you should give it a try. It does take place during the winter time, just as all of the other books on this list, but it also kind of has that, like, Christmassy, wintry spirit in my mind because of this family trying to love and cherish this man who wants absolutely nothing to do with them. And he ends up kind of having everything he's always wanted in the end. And even thinking about it now, I'm like trying really hard to not fall apart emotionally. This is an absolutely amazing book. If you like those kind of happy sad reads, this is probably the book for you. It is an absolutely beautiful story, and I definitely recommend it as one of your possible winter reads. So, those were my 5 winter reads that I recommend, or that I would love to read in the wintertime, or did read in the wintertime. Wow. Did these books take a turn? I feel like only one of the books that I picked was actually lighthearted, and I apologize for that, but I don't tend to read books that are extremely lighthearted, so, you know, if you're watching my recommendations or my book lists, you just kind of have to accept that. But I will see you in the next video. Happy reading. Goodbye, guys.